September 27th, 2025. A moonless sky. Two ships drift in silence across the Caribbean, ordinary silhouettes on a sleeping sea. But deep inside their steel hulls beats a $7 billion secret: 40 tons of narcotics, guarded by 40 armed men who believe the ocean itself will hide their sins. They were wrong, because somewhere beyond the horizon, radar screens glowed and encrypted radios crackled. The United States Navy had already marked them, and what was about to happen would turn the calm Caribbean night into a floating battlefield. The deal of the century. For months, intelligence analysts had pieced together fragments, odd shipping routes, intercepted pings, whispers of an alliance between two of the world's most violent cartels. Now, under cover of darkness, the plan was unfolding. One ship sailed north from Venezuela, its manifest forged, its crew loyal only to greed. The other crept in from the west, flying the colors of a merchant vessel, but carrying men with machine guns. Their goal: exchange cash for poison on open water. No borders, no witnesses, no law. Inside the cargo hold lay enough chemicals to wipe out entire cities. 10 tons of fentanyl, 15 tons of meth, 15 tons of pure cocaine. Every brick wrapped tight, stacked floor to ceiling. If the deal succeeded, it would flood American streets for months. But the ocean was listening. Satellites in low orbit watched every movement. Drones traced their silhouettes against the Black Sea. And somewhere in Washington, a green light flashed. The hunt begins. From the deck of the amphibious ship San Antonio-class LPD-17, orders snapped through encrypted headsets. 10 RHIBs, rigid-hull inflatable boats, slid quietly into the water. Each carried 6 men armed with M4A1 carbines and Mk-48 machine guns. Above them, an MH-60S Seahawk hovered like a ghost, its heavy GAU-21 ready to tear the night apart. For 48 hours, these sailors had waited, sleeping in shifts, engines silent, hearts pounding. The mission: intercept, board, and seize before dawn. No mistakes, no second chance. At 3:10 a.m., the two cartel vessels met mid-sea. From afar, they looked like two shadows greeting each other. Up close, it was pure tension. Men pacing the decks, fingers on triggers, cash and drugs ready to trade. They thought they were alone. They weren't. Closing in. From 10 nautical miles out, the Seahawk pilot whispered coordinates. Visual on target. Multiple hostiles. Heat signatures confirmed. Below, the RHIBs fanned out in a silent arc. Engines idled. The sea hissed softly against their hulls. Every man stared into the darkness, waiting for the signal. Then, 3 words came through the comms. Hold the line. For the next 18 minutes, nothing moved except the waves. Then a faint metallic clang echoed across the water, the sound of crates being dragged across a deck. It was the moment they had waited for. Execute. The trap snapped shut. Engines roared to life. 10 boats surged forward, cutting through the black water like spears. Above, the Seahawk dived, searchlight armed, rotors screaming. The first beam of white exploded across the deck of the narcotics ship, freezing every man in blinding light. A voice boomed from the sky. U.S. Navy, drop your weapons and surrender now. For one heartbeat, silence. Then chaos. A cartel gunner swung a mounted heavy machine gun toward the light and opened fire. Tracers tore through the dark like comets. The Seahawk shook violently, bullets hammering its armor. Below, the RHIBs scattered, sailors returning fire in precise bursts. The calm sea was gone, replaced by thunder and sparks. Mk-48 machine guns rattled, cutting through the roar. Navy snipers on the flanks found their marks. Clean, disciplined shots. Every flash of light revealed faces twisted in fear and defiance. The ocean itself seemed to shudder under the noise. Within seconds, the battle had begun. The war on water. At 3:30 a.m., 10 boats surrounded the cartel freighter. Bullets shredded the air. A rocket-propelled grenade streaked from the deck, missing a RHIB by meters before detonating in the waves, sending a geyser of water over the sailors. Still, they pressed forward. From above, the Seahawk unleashed its fury. a 3-second burst from the GAU-21 50 caliber machine gun that tore through the Cartel's turret, silencing it instantly. Fire burst from the ship's midsection. Smoke coiled upward like a black serpent. The Navy had turned the smugglers' fortress into a trap of their own making. As the firefight raged, one sailor took shrapnel in the arm but kept firing, his blood washing into the sea. His squad moved in tighter formation, their eyes fixed on the burning deck ahead. Every minute felt like an hour. Every sound was survival. By 3:40 a.m., over 1,200 rounds had been exchanged. The freighter was burning, its hull glowing orange. The Cartel's fighters were cornered, but not broken. Somewhere below deck, shadows were still moving, and what waited there would shock even hardened soldiers. Because beneath the gunfire and smoke, the Navy was about to uncover something far darker than drugs. The battle's edge. 3:41 a.m. The sea boiled with gunfire. The once silent freighter now screamed under a storm of steel. Flames licked up the cargo cranes, smoke rolled down the deck, and every wave carried the echo of automatic fire. Yet, even as their numbers fell, the Cartel soldiers refused to surrender. They had been promised fortunes, power, and freedom if they made this delivery. Now, all they had left was chaos. From the bridge of the lead RHIB, a lieutenant barked into the comms, his voice steady over the thunder. "Close in! Suppress and board!" 10 boats accelerated in perfect unison, slicing through firelight and spray. Each one veered toward a different side of the ship, north, south, port, starboard, forming a tightening noose. Above, the Seahawk roared back into position, its searchlight carving through smoke like a sword. Cartel gunners tried one last stand, firing blind into the glow, but every muzzle flash gave them away. Navy snipers on the ribs answered with cold precision. One flash, one shot, one body down. Within 5 minutes, the return fire faltered. Ammunition clattered uselessly onto the deck. Then came the sound no soldier mistakes, metal hitting steel. Weapons dropping, hands rising. But the nightmare wasn't over. At 3:52 a.m., the command rang out. "Boarding team, go!" Hooks flew, ladders slammed, and boots thudded against the freighter's hull. 30 sailors swarmed upward, rifles aimed, lasers sweeping through the smoke. The deck was slick with seawater and blood, littered with fallen men and smoldering crates. They moved in 2 squads, left flank clearing the bridge, right flank heading for the cargo hold. Every door was kicked open, every corridor checked. Below deck, the air was thick. Diesel, chemicals, fear. The first squad pushed past the galley, finding the lower hold where the fortune lay hidden. Stacks of narcotics, pallet after pallet, wrapped in film, towering like walls. It wasn't just contraband, it was the architecture of addiction, the blueprint of death. 40 tons confirmed, the radio hissed. The lieutenant didn't celebrate. He'd seen enough to know. No one loads poison this deadly without something to hide. Down a narrow corridor, a locked metal door resisted every kick. A sailor raised his breaching shotgun. Boom! The lock exploded. Inside, darkness, then movement. 5 human figures, 3 women, 2 children, huddled against the wall, chained and trembling. Their faces ghost white, their eyes wide. They weren't smugglers, they were hostages. For a moment, the chaos above vanished. The men froze, then training took over. Rifles lowered, voices softened. "It's okay, you're safe, U.S. Navy." One child clung so tightly to a sailor's uniform that he refused to let go even when carried back to the ladder. Another whispered something in Spanish, just one word: "Gracias." By 4:10 a.m., the freighter was under complete control. 25 cartel fighters captured alive, a dozen more dead or missing. The hostages wrapped in blankets, trembling but breathing. And yet, the mission wasn't done. The ship itself had become a floating bomb, fire spreading through fuel lines, ammunition cooking off in the heat. The engineers assessed the hull, too damaged, too unstable to tow. There was only one option: prepare demolition charges, the final order. As dawn crept over the horizon, sailors worked silently, setting explosives along the lower deck, marking the exit path. The surviving gunmen watched in handcuffs, faces blank as their empire collapsed before their eyes. At 5:02 a.m., the last team boarded the RHIBs. The lieutenant gave a single nod. A bright flash split the horizon. Then another. Then 10 more. Fire erupted across the freighter as the charges blew in sequence. First the bow, then the midsection, then the stern. The $7 billion ship that had once promised riches turned into a rising pillar of flame. The Caribbean sky glowed orange. The sea reflected the inferno. And in that burning reflection, every man on the RHIB knew this was more than victory. It was a message. When the smoke cleared, the true scale of the operation began to surface. Bank trails, encrypted data, and alliances that reached far beyond the Caribbean. Because this wasn't just a drug bust, it was a glimpse into something far bigger. An invisible war fought on the world's oceans. By dawn, the battle was over. The Caribbean, calm once more, carried only the scent of smoke and salt. Where the freighter had been, a field of burning debris floated, twisted metal, black water, and silence. The Seahawk hovered one last time over the wreck, cameras capturing every frame. Below, the RHIBs drifted in formation, each carrying a piece of the story. 5 rescued hostages wrapped in blankets, 30 cartel gunmen bound and silent, and mountains of evidence sealed in waterproof crates. On deck, the sailors sat in exhausted stillness. No cheers, no applause, just the quiet hum of engines and the slow realization of what they'd done. 40 tons of narcotics, gone. A $7 billion empire, erased. 5 innocent lives, saved. But the numbers were only part of it. The real story was what came next. Back aboard the San Antonio, technicians began cataloging everything pulled from the wreck. Hard drives, encrypted phones, bank ledgers hidden in false bulkheads. What they found painted a chilling picture. Dozens of shell companies registered in Panama and Curacao. Offshore accounts totaling over $50 million. Transaction codes linked to front businesses in Europe. And most alarming of all, encrypted messages hinting at weapons shipments moving the other way. The drug ship hadn't just been carrying poison. It had been trading it for arms. Assault rifles, ammunition, maybe even explosives. The cartels weren't just criminal syndicates anymore. They were evolving into private armies. Analysts in Washington stared at the decrypted files in disbelief. The data connected 2 of the world's most dangerous cartels into one sprawling network, stretching from South America to Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. They weren't just smuggling drugs. They were building power, financing terror, buying influence. Had this ship made it through, the impact would have been catastrophic. 10 tons of fentanyl alone could produce over 4.5 billion lethal doses, enough to turn American cities into graveyards. The realization was sobering. This wasn't a war on drugs anymore. It was a war for control. At sunrise, the rescued hostages were airlifted to safety. The youngest, a boy no older than 8, saluted the sailors as the helicopter lifted off. No one spoke, but everyone felt it. That moment was the quiet victory they'd fought for. Hours later, the Pentagon issued a short statement. It didn't name the cartels, or the location, or even the operation. It simply said, "A major narcotics shipment has been intercepted in the Caribbean. No U.S. casualties reported." But within the Navy, they knew the truth. They knew how close it had come, and how much darker the ocean had grown. The wreck continued to burn through the morning, a lone column of smoke against a rising sun. To some, it was a victory. To others, a warning. Because for every ship that burns, there are 10 more setting sail. For every network destroyed, another waits in the shadows. And the sea, beautiful, endless, indifferent, remembers everything. From that day on, naval patrols intensified across the Caribbean. Satellites refocused. Alliances were re-examined. America had sent a message not just to two cartels, but to anyone who thought the ocean could hide their crimes. "Attack our borders with poison," one admiral said quietly, "and the sea itself will rise against you." The operation became legend among those who fought it, spoken of in whispers, never in press releases. Some called it the Night of Fire, others, the War on the Waves. But to those who were there, it was something simpler. Proof that vigilance has a price, and freedom has guardians who stand watch while the world sleeps. Because while the world turns away, evil sails in silence. And when it does, the ocean watches. So when you look out over the sea, remember this. Somewhere beyond the horizon, unseen and unspoken, someone is keeping the waves safe. If you believe these untold stories deserve to be heard, share this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to Below the Surface TV. Because the world's darkest secrets don't hide underground. They hide beneath the waves.